The cake was already on the table when my brother said it. 3 tiers, cream, cheese, frosting, my father's face printed on the top layer in edible ink. I had ordered it 2 weeks in advance from the bakery across town. The one my father used to take us to on Sundays when we were small, before everything got complicated. The whole restaurant smelled like butter and gardenias. I'd arranged the centerpieces myself, white and gold, my father's favorite colors. 60 years. It deserved to be beautiful. Dad was mid-sentence, thanking everyone for coming. Getting a little choked up the way he does whenever the whole family is in one room. That was when my brother leaned back in his chair, the way he always does when he's about to perform something, and said loud enough for all 14 people at that table to hear. "You know how Diane is, Dad. She plans all of this, so we don't forget she exists. She's been trying to buy her way into this family for years." Someone laughed. I think it was my cousin. Then the table picked it up, that ripple of uncomfortable laughter that people join not because something is funny, but because the alternative is silence, and silence means choosing a side. My father said nothing. He just looked down at the cake. The one with his face on it, the one I had driven 40 minutes to pick up that morning. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I set my fork down very carefully on the edge of my plate, picked up my purse, and walked to where the restaurant manager was standing near the host station. "I'm going to need to remove my card from the reservation hold," I told him. "Whatever the family orders from here, they'll need to settle it themselves." He nodded. He had the good grace not to ask questions. On my way past the table, my brother called after me. "Diane, come on. Don't be dramatic." I didn't answer. I pushed open the door and walked into the February cold, and I didn't look back. My name is Diane Kohler. I am 31 years old, and from wherever you are watching this, stay with me. Because the night they laughed at my love was the last night I let them take anything from me. I should explain who I am in this family before I explain what happened next. I am the middle child, which means I am no one's favorite story. My older brother Wade has always been the sun the rest of us were supposed to orbit. Charismatic, funny when he wanted to be, the kind of person who walks into a room and immediately becomes the center of it. Failed marriages, collapsed businesses, borrowed money with no intention of paying it back. None of that ever seemed to stick to him the way mud sticks to everyone else. My mother called it charm. I called it practice. I grew up quiet, careful. The kind of daughter who remembered that mom's back hurt on rainy days and made sure there was Tylenol in the cabinet. The kind of sister who co-signed Wade's apartment lease after his first divorce because his credit score was a disaster and someone had to. The kind of employee who got promoted 3 times in 4 years because showing up fully every single time is apparently a rare skill. I gave without announcing it. Partly because that's just who I am. Partly because somewhere in the back of my mind, I think I believed that if I kept the machine running smoothly, they would eventually notice the hand on the engine. They didn't. Or maybe they did and decided it was simpler to let me keep going. What I did for Dad's 60th birthday was not small. I started planning in September, 4 months out. I found the restaurant, negotiated the private dining room, put down the deposit on my credit card. I called my father's 3 closest friends from his old neighborhood and tracked down their numbers through Facebook, LinkedIn, mutual acquaintances. I hired a local photographer to put together a slideshow of 73 photos from Dad's life, organized by decade, set to songs he actually liked. I ordered the cake. I arranged the flowers. I created a group chat for the family. So everyone knew the time and location, sent 2 reminders, and personally called my aunt, who never checks her phone to make sure she had directions. The bill for the evening, before whatever anyone ordered off the menu, was just under $800 out of my pocket. Wade showed up 17 minutes late. He kissed my mother on the cheek, shook my father's hand, and said, "Sorry, traffic was a nightmare." Then he sat down, poured himself a glass of wine from the bottle I had pre-selected, and started holding court about his landscaping business's recent big contract. No one mentioned that he was late. No one mentioned the room full of flowers. No one mentioned the slideshow that had made my father tear up. Or the friends from 40 years ago, sitting at the far end of the table because I had thought to track them down. Then came the cake. Then came Dad's speech. Then came my brother's voice, loud and easy and utterly comfortable with itself. She's been trying to buy her way into this family for years. I have replayed that sentence many times since then. The way it landed, not like an accusation, but like a correction. Like he was simply naming something everyone already knew and had been too polite to say. I have thought about how my father looked down at the cake rather than at me. I have thought about the laugh that traveled down the table like a wave, touching everyone, including my aunt who cried when I drove her to chemotherapy appointments 3 years ago because she was too proud to ask anyone else. In that moment, I understood something I had been not understanding for years. This was not a family that forgot to thank me. This was a family that had decided collectively that my role was to give, and that gratitude was not part of the transaction. Gratitude would have implied debt. They preferred to frame my giving as a personality quirk, maybe even a flaw. Something I did for myself. Something that didn't require acknowledgement because it wasn't really for them. That reframe protected them, and I had let it. The car was cold when I got in. I sat there for a minute with the engine off, hands in my lap. I kept waiting for the part where I started shaking, or the tears hit, or some wave of anger came through that I'd have to manage. None of it came. What came instead was something quieter and more absolute. A door closing in a room that had been drafty for years. I drove home. I made chamomile tea. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, and I started making changes. The first thing I did was log into the web hosting account. Wade's landscaping business had a website. Professional, clean, with a booking form and a photo gallery of past projects. He had asked me to help him set it up 2 summers ago when he was relaunching after the second divorce. I had built it, set up the domain, and started the monthly hosting subscription on my card. He had never asked how much it cost. He had never offered to reimburse me. Last month's charge was $42. I canceled the subscription that night. Renewal was set for 3 weeks out. He had until then before the site went dark. Then I pulled up the insurance portal. After his second divorce, Wade had let his car insurance lapse. Couldn't manage the payment, he'd said, just for a few months, just until he got back on his feet. My mother had called me, quietly, the way she did when she needed me to do something without making it a whole thing. I had added him to my policy as an additional driver. The monthly increase was $61. I removed him that night. Then the family Costco membership. I was the primary cardholder. My mother used the card for bulk groceries every month. I called the membership line and updated the card on file to a gift card with exactly 0 balance. Then the monthly grocery delivery I had set up for my mother after her knee surgery 2 years ago. She had gotten used to it. I had never stopped it. I went in and canceled the subscription. I didn't feel angry doing any of this. That surprised me later, when I thought back on it. I had expected fury. What I felt instead was the quiet satisfaction of someone cleaning out a closet they'd been avoiding. Necessary, overdue, clarifying. The silence that followed was almost immediate. Wade didn't reach out the next day, or the day after. That didn't surprise me. What surprised me was that it didn't hurt. I had half expected that his absence would create some kind of vacuum, that I'd feel the pull of the old pattern. Reach out, smooth it over, make it okay so everyone could move on. But the pull wasn't there. I woke up that first morning and lay in bed, listening to the quiet of my apartment and thought, this is what my mornings are supposed to feel like. Then, 4 days later, the texts started. The first one was from my mother. Diane, the Costco card isn't working. Is something wrong with the account? Then Wade, 2 days after that. Hey, site's down. Did you accidentally cancel something? Then my mother again. The grocery delivery didn't come. Can you check the order? Then Wade, in a different tone, Diane, I'm serious. I have a client inquiry coming through my website. This is my business. I didn't answer any of them. I wasn't being petty. I want to be clear about that. I was being honest in the only way they had ever actually understood, the language of withdrawal. Words had never landed with these people. Explanations just gave them material to reinterpret. The only thing they registered was the absence of what they had always assumed would be there. My friend Leela called me on a Thursday, 9 days after the birthday dinner. She had heard about it from her cousin, who was tangentially connected to my family, through a neighborhood church. That's how small the world gets, when you've lived in the same city, your whole life. I heard your brother is furious, she said. He can be. His website is down. Yes. A pause. Did you do that on purpose? I stopped paying for it, I said. He can do it on purpose if he wants. She laughed, the kind of laugh that's also a little bit of relief. She had watched me quietly hold this family together for years from the sidelines, never saying much because I had never asked her to say anything. Now, she said, "Good. I hope it stays down." She told me later that my mother had called her trying to reach me, that the family group chat had dissolved into accusations, that someone, she thought my aunt, had finally asked what exactly I had been paying for all this time, and that the number, once tallied even roughly, had made the table go quiet. I spent some of those quiet evenings asking myself the question that I think everyone in this situation eventually has to face. Was I overreacting? Was one comment at a dinner table really worth all of this? I sat with that question honestly. And then I answered it honestly. It wasn't one comment. It was a comment that landed the way it did because it was true to them. It wasn't an outburst or a mistake. It was my brother stating, plainly, what the family had always believed. That my effort was self-serving, that my giving was performance, that I didn't belong at this table except as a function. He said it in front of 14 people, and not one of them, including my father, pushed back. That's not an overreaction. That's data. The voicemails from my mother started the second week. Her voice was careful. The kind of careful that means she knows she did something wrong, but isn't sure she's ready to say so. "Diane, please, we're family. Whatever happened, we can talk about it." The word, whatever, as if she genuinely didn't know, or had decided the details were optional. I listened to them once. I didn't call back. Wade sent a longer text eventually, a real one. He said he was sorry if I took it the wrong way, that he was just joking around, that I had always been too sensitive. There it was, the sorry that isn't one, the acknowledgement that centers its own discomfort rather than mine. I read it twice, then set my phone down and made dinner. Then he posted something on social media. A photo of a sunrise over one of his landscaping projects, captioned, "Some people would rather tear down than build up. Keep going anyway." Subtle as a freight train. He was the builder in this narrative, apparently. I was the demolition. I didn't respond. I didn't react. I muted his account and made a note to send my father a birthday card separately, on his actual birthday, with no return address. Around that same time, I got a call from my manager about a new project, one I had been quietly angling toward for over a year. A senior coordinator role for a regional initiative. More responsibility, more visibility, a significant jump in pay. It was mine if I wanted it. I said yes before she finished the sentence. I didn't tell my family. I thought about it for about 30 seconds, then thought about my brother's face. When my father thanked everyone at the dinner, the way he'd reached for the stage before anyone else could. And I thought, no, this one is mine. I don't need to hand it to a room that will figure out how to make it about someone else. Lila found out and took me to dinner to celebrate. She ordered a bottle of wine that was too expensive for a Tuesday and raised her glass and said, "To you, finally, just you." I almost argued, out of habit, the way you do when you've spent years making yourself smaller, in rooms full of family. Then I stopped. Let myself be the subject of the sentence for once. It felt unfamiliar and right at the same time, like putting weight on a foot that had been asleep too long. Spring came. My father's birthday fell in February, so by March I had been out of the family orbit for about 6 weeks, so I had filled the space with things I had been putting off. A pottery class I'd bookmarked and never signed up for, a hiking trail app, dinners with friends who had been patient about my perpetually packed calendar. I was not waiting for forgiveness, and I was not planning revenge. Those two options had always seemed like the only exits from situations like mine. But there was a third one. Nobody talked about enough. You could simply leave the architecture. Stop feeding the system. Let it run on whatever it had been before you arrived. And trust that what came next was not your problem to manage. My mother tried one more time in April. A handwritten note which surprised me. It was so analog for her. It said that she missed me, that the family felt incomplete, that she knew things hadn't been perfect. Not a word about Wade. Not a word about what he said, just an invitation to come back to the table as if nothing had cracked. I kept the note. I didn't answer it. What I did instead was plan something for myself. A small dinner, mid-April, the kind of evening that has no occasion except that you wanted it. I cooked from a recipe I'd been saving for months. I set my table with the good dishes I almost never used. Because good dishes had always felt like something you save for company, and the company I kept had never quite deserved the good dishes. Lila came. A coworker named Brent who always remembered things I mentioned in passing and followed up on them weeks later. A woman from my pottery class called Winslow who was 73 years old and funnier than anyone else I knew. 4 people around a table in my apartment. No occasion, no agenda. Brent brought bread. Winslow brought a jar of something she'd preserved herself and couldn't stop laughing about. At one point, Lila said, "You look different." She didn't mean my appearance. I knew what she meant. I said, "I feel like I've been exhaling for 2 months straight." She nodded like she understood exactly. I thought, briefly, about my father. I hoped someone had made sure he was okay. I hoped my mother had remembered to schedule his cardiologist appointment the way I used to. I hoped he had found whatever he was looking for when he looked down at that cake instead of at me. I didn't hope for a long time. Just a moment, and then I let it pass, and I came back to the table I had set for myself with the people who had chosen to be there, and I stayed. There is a thing nobody warns you about when you are the capable one in a family. They tell you you're strong, that you can handle it, that you're so reliable, so steady. And what they're actually doing is building a cage they can leave you in while they go live their lives. The cage is made of your own competence. You can't refuse to enter it without seeming difficult. You can't walk out without being called cold. But here is what I have learned. The cage only holds if you keep agreeing to be inside it. I spent years believing that being needed was the same thing as being loved. That if I was useful enough, present enough, generous enough, I would earn a seat at a table that had always had a chair for me in theory, and nothing for me in practice. The dinner in February was not the thing that broke me. It was the thing that finally made the whole architecture visible. All at once, in the light. Wade said I was trying to buy my way into the family. What he meant, without knowing he was saying it, was that I had been paying rent on a home I was never going to actually own. I stopped paying, and the walls when they came down were not mine. I don't know what they say about me now. Probably that I changed. Probably that I overreacted. Probably that I am cold or ungrateful or holding a grudge. None of those things are true, but I've stopped needing them to get the story right. The story isn't theirs to tell. What I know is this. I wake up in a space that doesn't make demands of me before I've had coffee. I give, still, to Lila, to Winslow, to Brent, to the people at the food pantry where I started volunteering in March. But I give the way you give when your hands are full rather than when they're bleeding. The difference is enormous. The difference is everything. There is a sticky note on my bathroom mirror that I wrote the week after the dinner and haven't taken down since. 4 lines, my handwriting, slightly crooked. They laughed at what I gave. I smiled when I stood up. I said nothing worth saying, and they heard all of it. Wade was right about one thing. I was trying to buy my way into the family. What he didn't understand is that I stopped because I finally read the price tag, and it was everything I was, forever, for a seat they were never actually offering. I don't want the seat anymore. I built my own table. And there is enough room at it for everyone who knows how to show up for someone, without needing to perform it first.